Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This is the 47th tutorial in this course, and in this tutorial we are going to continue our discussion on classes and objects, and I'm going to just show you some tweaks with the last program that we made in the last tutorial. And this is what the program looks like, and if you haven't seen the last tutorial, then I would suggest you guys to watch it, because you won't be able to understand much of what we're going to do in this tutorial if you haven't checked out the last tutorial, right? So the first thing that we're going to see is how we can remove this name parameter from the argument list for our constructor function. So it's not necessary that whenever you create a constructor function you have to receive an argument through the object creation statement. That's not necessary. So I'll get rid of this and what I'll do is, since I'm still interested in knowing the name of my user, I'm going to use a print statement here inside the constructor function, and I'm going to ask the user to tell me his or her name. So I'll have a message like, what's your name? And then I'm going to use the input function to store the input in the variable myClass.name, right? And this is very simple. And what I'll have to do is, I'll obviously have to make changes to my object creation statement, because now we're no longer going to pass values to the constructor function, right? So I'll get rid of all these object statements. And another thing that we're going to check out is that if suppose you want to create 5 objects in your script file, then it's not important for you to have the object creation statements written 5 times. You could have a loop, and if you know that you're going to create the statements, create the objects, in the same way, in more or less the same way, then you can have a loop, right? And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to declare a variable called var. I'll give it the value 0, and this is supposed to be the control variable that I'm going to use with my while loop, right? On the next line, I'm going to define an empty list. I'll call this my list, and I'll use empty square brackets to create this list. And then on the next line, I'll type in the keyword while, and I'll loop for var less than 4, right? So var initially has the value 0, and if var runs to less than 4, then it means that it's going to run 4 times. The loop is going to have 4 iterations, right? And the iterations are going to be for var equals 0, var equals 1, var equals 2, and var equals 3. And it cannot be 4. As soon as it will get 4, the loop will terminate, right? And then I'll put in a colon here. I'll get inside the body of the while loop, and what I'll do is, I'll type in my list, and I'll use the append function of list, and as an argument to this, I'll pass in the class name, and with a set of parentheses. So what I'm doing is, at each position in the list, if suppose the loop of course is going to run 4 times, so the list is currently empty, it doesn't have any element in it. But if I'm using the append function in each iteration, then for 4 iterations we are going to append 4 different values to the list. And an object is nothing but some space in the memory for the class, right? So it can also be as a element in a list. It doesn't necessarily have to be an exclusive variable in its own. It can also be a part of a list variable. At each index position you could have an object variable for a class. So I have used the append function here, and as an argument I have passed in the name of the class with the empty parentheses. And of course I'm not passing anything within these parentheses, because the constructor function no longer needs to take in an argument now, right? And this is it. And then obviously I'll have to make calls to the functions check color and display result. And since the first object is going to be available at the index position 0 of the variable mylist, I'll have to type in mylist, and then within square brackets I'll have to type in 0, or sorry, I'll have to type in var, because var contains the value. So in the second iteration, var is going to have the value 1, and the object at the index position 1 is going to be used, right? So var is going to take care of this for me. I'll put in a dot, and this is what we do to call a function when we know where the object is. I'll type in check underscore color, the name of the function, the first function, and then I'll type in mylist, and within square brackets again I'll type in var, and then I'll put in a dot, and then display underscore result, and another set of empty parentheses. And the last thing that I have to do in this program is I'll have to update the control variable by typing in var equals var plus 1, right? I'll save this file, and when I execute the program, I see the message what's your name, right? So the constructor function has been called, so that means that the first iteration of the while loop is currently going on, right? So I'll type in Roger here, and what's the color of your car? Well, let's say Roger has a black car, right? So hello Roger, total number of black cars is 1, sample size is 1. Then again, the second iteration is working now, so we are again seeing the message what's your name. So the constructor function has been called the second time now. So let's say the name of the second guy is Rafa, and let's say Rafa has a green car. So hello Rafa, total number of black cars 1, other cars 1, sample size is 2. Let's say the next guy is Andy, right? So the color of Andy's car, let's say, is red, and hello Andy, total number of black cars is 1, and other cars, the count is 2, and the sample size is 3. And let's say finally we have Novak as the guy who we approached, and let's say Novak has a white car. So hello Novak, total number of black cars is 1, total number of white cars is 0. And the reason why this is 0 is that I've actually made an error in my program, and I'll tell you what that error is. In my list, I have the word wide with the all small case letters, and as an input I have supplied wide with the W as a capital letter. And the reason why we didn't get this problem with the black for Roger is because when I provided the value black, I use small b as my first character of the input, whereas in the case of white I use W. So you can make changes to your program to sort of accommodate for this problem. You could have more values in your list, and you could have these small case values and uppercase values, or you could change the input received to lower case letters, all lower case letters, and then make the comparison. You can do all those things because we've already checked out string functions, and I'm sure that you guys are familiar with those techniques now. So anyway, my objective in this tutorial was not to show you guys the output, but I just wanted to tell you some techniques that you can use to use, like for instance using loops to create class objects, and having class objects as individual elements of a list, and also that the constructor function doesn't necessarily have to take in an argument, right? You can just have self as an argument, and it'll work. And the next thing that we're going to check out in this tutorial is, at first I thought that I'd have another tutorial on classes, and I'll discuss the next bit that I want to show you guys in the next tutorial. But then I thought that let's just wrap up our discussion on classes in this tutorial itself, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm again going to change my constructor function, and I'll get rid of this print statement, and I'll change it to the way it was initially, right? So I've passed in name as a second argument, so I'll have to get rid of the print statement, as I said. And so what this means now is that the constructor function is again going to take name as an argument. So with this code, suppose we want to use the loop, and we also want to pass in the constructor function an argument, the name as an argument. And you would want to do something like this when you want to create multiple objects using a loop, but you do not want to supply the name every time, right? So to take care of that, what I'm going to do is, after creating this variable called var here, I'm going to create a variable called names, right? And it's going to be a list variable, and I'll put in 4 names in this list variable, right? So Roger is 1, and then let's say we want Rafa as the second one, and then let's say we want Andy as the third guy, and let's say we want to have Novak as the fourth guy, right? And then since I want these values to be passed to the constructor function in each iteration, what I'll have to do here is that I'll have to type in the name of the list variable that contains these values, and then within square brackets I'll again type in var, right? So the way this is going to work is, an object is going to be created at the 0th position of the list variable mylist in the first iteration, and it's going to pass in the value Roger, which is again at the 0th position of the list variable names, to the constructor function of the class myClass, right? So this is a little complicated, and I would suggest you guys to pause the video here and just take a minute to understand this. If you've understood it, then that's just brilliant. I'll save this file now, and when I execute it, I just see that I get the message, what's the color of your car? I don't see what's your name. So now I don't have to type in names, I can just type in colors, and I'm gonna make sure that I type in all small case letters this time. So black, and let's say wide, and let's say white again, and let's say blue, right? So let me scroll up to show you guys the output. So for the first iteration, we see the message, hello Roger, total number of black cars is 1, sample size is 1. Second case, hello Rafa, total number of black cars is 1 and white cars is 1 because we supplied white as the input, sample size is 2. Total number of black cars is 1, white cars is 2 for Andy. And then finally for Novak, we supplied blue as the input, so others has to be updated, and the sample size has been changed to 4, right? So this is it. This is all I had to discuss with you guys about classes and objects, and I hope you guys had fun watching this tutorial in the last one too. And you may subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and if you have any doubts, you can email me, you can put in comments, you can contact me on Facebook, you can do whatever suits you best. And I'll see you guys in the next video, in which again we'll discuss something interesting about Python. And thank you so much for watching this one. I'll see you in the next video. Till then,